Russia invaded Ukraine, claiming it was an effort to stop them from joining NATO. Well, it now appears Russia's invasion of Ukraine has prompted both Sweden and Finland to submit membership requests to join NATO.
The applications you have made today are an historic step. Allies will now consider the next steps on their path to NATO.
Meanwhile, the U.S. has set up the Conflict Observatory to record war crimes committed by Russia. Amidst all this international news, the ongoing crisis at the border, record-setting gas prices, and now the baby formula shortage, the Biden administration spent yesterday recognizing what's called an International Day against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia. And joining me now to discuss all of it, actually, we are going to have Congressman Greg Steube in just one moment as he gets settled. We have him now. Congressman Greg Steube serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, the House Judiciary Committee. He represents Florida's 17th District. Congressman, good to see you again today.
Hey, yeah, good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, first, Russia and NATO. President Putin said the primary reason for his invasion was the possibility that Ukraine might join NATO. Now it seems that he's incentivized Finland and Sweden to do so. What's your reaction to all of this?
Yeah, he's definitely, I mean, if you're Finland and Sweden, you absolutely want to get into NATO right now. And you know why? Because the Western world and the NATO allies, including President Biden, has said that they will stand behind NATO allies. So now Sweden and Finland know that if they get if they get on NATO, they'll get the protection of all the NATO allies in the United States. So absolutely, there's going to be a bold rush for those countries, especially those in Eastern Europe that are along the Russian border, as quickly as they can to join NATO so they have protection of the other NATO allies and the United States.
That does make sense. What are the reasons that Finland and Sweden may have been reluctant to join up until now?
Well, I'm sure part of it was the cost. There's obviously a cost to being a part of NATO. And Trump was actually pushing on them, other countries, to pay their fair share when he was the president, because the United States pays an exorbitantly more than some of these other countries. But part of it is the cost that these countries have to pay to become a part of the United Nations and NATO.
Well, Congressman, given how this invasion has gone for Russia, or perhaps it's better to say how has not gone, do you think this decision by Sweden and Finland to join NATO will affect what Putin does in the future?
Well, I certainly think now would be a time that he would think about attacking them before they become members of NATO, because he knows they won't have that protection, that cloak of protection from NATO allies in the United States. But they're drawn so thin. I mean, one of the reports from the British Army was a third of the Russian army military has been destroyed. If those numbers are true, he doesn't have the resources to expend himself in other avenues like in Finland and Sweden. So obviously it's very intelligent on those two countries to try to join NATO and become a part of that organization to get the support and protection from those other countries. I think he's spread so thin and not having the advances that he thought he would have, that I'm sure he would like to attack those other fronts, but he's going to try to focus on the eastern side of Ukraine.
And certainly we hope that this invasion, what we hope is a failed invasion of Ukraine, will deter not only Putin, but anybody else who might be considering aggression into their neighbor's territory. But with respect to the way the U.S. is handling this, early in the conflict, it seemed the U.S. was really concerned about provoking Putin, that they didn't want to do anything that would cause him to react. Now it seems the U.S. is much more interested in simply defeating him. Do you think that's a fair characterization of the way the U.S. is responding?
Well, it's the Biden administration. All of the things they should have done to prevent him to invade, they didn't, when they should have weeks and months before. They should have been sanctioning the Russian government and Vladimir Putin and all of his allies long before they invaded, while they were doing the buildup, which would have had a huge economic impact on his decision whether he actually invaded. They didn't do that. And now it's, instead of putting, our service members or our air capabilities, it's sending them billions upon billions of dollars, of which we don't get any oversight on in Congress. We haven't got any reports on the initial $14 billion of weapons that have been sent. Now there's another $40 billion that's been approved by Congress. that's going? Where is that money going? Is it even getting to the Ukrainians? We haven't gotten any information as it relates to that, but this administration seems fit to just keep sending them money and weapons in the hope that they can defeat or at least push back Russians to the Russian line.
With respect to the aid that the United States is giving, the $40 billion that you just referenced, that number represents 7 times Ukraine's total military budget, and it's more than 3 times what the rest of Europe has contributed in aid combined. Do you think we're doing what's necessary, or are we doing too much?
Well, I voted against that on a number of different bases. One, we still don't know what happened to the original $14 billion that we appropriated, what happened to the weapons that we transferred over there. But on top of that, that $40 billion is the annual budget of the Coast Guard, Customs and Border Patrol, ICE, and all of our assets on the border. And we have an invasion on our southern border, and we're going to spend the entire budget of all of those agencies combined and send to the Ukrainians with absolutely no oversight, with absolutely no guardrails onto how that money is supposed to be spent. And that's absolutely reckless in a time where we're a huge deficit, record spending, record inflation, record gas and diesel prices, and you're just adding to all of this by sending money to the Ukrainians that you're having to borrow from China, by the way, to send there because we've spent so much money that we don't have in our coffers.
Well, Congressman Steube, I'm getting messages that you have to leave now because votes on the floor are summoning you, and that, of course, much to our chagrin, is more important than what we are doing here. So I'm going to let you go. Congressman Steube, we will finish the rest of this conversation, I hope, soon, but we'll let you get back to your official duties. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, we'd love to. Thank you.
Now,